This is an SBC Media Partners production.
Swung on, hit high and deep, right field. Could it be? It is out of here.
Phillies fans, these are your glove stories with Murph.
Let's check in with Greg Murphy. Murph, you got a special guest, huh?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Glove Stories with Murph, brought to you by the Bet Parks Casino, Sportsbook, and app, and also the great folks at Shy Vintage Sports and Phillies Nation, and we welcome in. We're really excited to talk to this guy, a guy that spent a couple of years in Philadelphia, but was a real fan favorite for sure, and still resides in the Delaware Valley, makes his home there as well. We welcome in former Phillies pitcher Brandon Duckworth to the podcast today. Brandon, first of all, good to see you. Look, I get a chance to see you from time to time as you make your way around the country scouting for the Yankees, and also our kids swimming against one another from time to time as well. But certainly good to have you, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your glove stories today.
Oh, it's great to be here, Murph. Always a pleasure to see you, talk to you, and looking forward to everything moving forward.
All right, let's talk a little bit about young Brandon Duckworth, growing up in Utah. Obviously a terrific athlete, as all you guys were as you came through. What was baseball always your sport? Was that always the go-to for you?
Yeah, it always was. I remember as a kid growing up, my mom always had the Cubs on. She was a big Ryne Sandberg fan. And back then, we had, Channel 1. So, and some of these things, we don't have all the stations and obviously all the electronics and whatnot. But, we always seemed to watch the Chicago Cubs and listen to Harry Carey and Steve Stone and all those people, and just watching the games. I loved the game. My mom loved the game. My father was a president for the Little League, so my brothers were playing that. So, I was brought up at the baseball field, sitting on his lap as he announced everybody's names, watching my mom keep score. It's funny because my mom was actually my coach as a Little Leaguer when I was 9. So, and kind of crazy, but we had 2 major leaguers on the same team come out of the same town. So myself and Ryan Jensen.
Okay. That's funny that you mentioned you're one of the first people to mention that at that early of an age, you also had another guy who was probably equally as accomplished as a young player. What do you remember about Ryan? I mean, do you remember thinking to yourself, hey, this kid's pretty good?
Yeah. We were friends, obviously. We played on the same team from 8 through 10. And then we played together later on once we got into like the, Babe Ruth type leagues. Yeah. But, he would pitch, I would catch, and vice versa. So it was kind of crazy to think moving down the road, and luck may have it, we both pitched against each other in the major leagues as well. Wow. So it was pretty crazy. It was like the perfect storm, and everything came around full circle. And, it was a great experience. And, you kind of pinch yourself because that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. What do you so you literally pitched against one another in the big leagues? You faced one another? What do you remember about that?
Philadelphia, neither one of us had our best games. We were probably trying too hard and whatnot, but but still at the end of the day, it was good quality outings. And, of course I pitched to him. He would never pitch to me. He's like, I ain't pitching to you.
That's because you raked, right?
Yeah. Well,
That's funny. Were family and friends all there for that?
No, they weren't. But
no,
it was kind of a cool thing because to play against, and in the big leagues against a former teammate from when you were 7, 8 years old, and to pitch against one another is like beyond, so no matter what we were, no matter what the final was, we both, had something that we could share and experience and share with our children.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. As a broadcaster, I can tell you one thing: we would have made a huge deal about that because that's a cool storyline for sure.
For sure.
we would have been talking about that. All right, let's go back. So you're growing up and you're playing baseball. Did you played other sports too, I would imagine?
Yeah, I love to play a little bit of everything. I was always on the go. I had too much energy, and I think my mom just wanted me out of the house half the time. So I played football, I played basketball. Football was okay, but it wasn't really a love. I did it here or there, dabbled in it, basketball, but, baseball was my true passion. When I was so young, I remember my mom, she painted a black square on our cinder block wall, and I would just go out and throw baseballs to it. So I think from that early age, being able to do stuff like that, understanding how to throw the ball, where to throw the ball, learning on my own, because they didn't really have experience. But my mom came from a very athletic family, and, baseball and softball was like a big thing for them.
It sounds like your mom was a bit of a trailblazer in terms of getting you to the point where you were. And, nowadays we see women coaching Little League all the time, but back then, not to make you sound too old, but back then you really didn't see that very often, right?
No, you didn't. And, she was good. She knew what she was doing, especially for that age group. I mean, I think the most important thing that people don't realize is the positivity that you have to share with kids to make them love the game. And just, the game's tough enough. And we see that today. I have my own children that are, my son, he's 11 playing, and, I try to explain stuff to him. And sometimes they take it personal, and you're like, no, I'm trying to help you here. But there's that fine line where you got to instill confidence in kids. And, I think that was a big thing for my mom. She was always there and trying to push the confidence factor. And I think that meant a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's probably true in all walks of life when you stop and think about it in terms of parents and stuff. All right. So high school comes along. At what point did you say to yourself, okay, I feel as though if I continue to put the work in, I continue to progress a little bit, that this might be something certainly I could take to college, but maybe even beyond?
I always had that dream, that aspiration to be a Major League Baseball player, watching them on TV and just seeing how they were. It was always something for me. And then, I happened to be a pretty good baseball player at the time, but I had two older brothers. Usually the youngest seems to follow, and, they pass on everything. My oldest brother played college baseball. So I was like, he was giving me all the information that he would get, on top of having some talent. And, when I was 13, 14, I was as good as all the other kids in the surrounding area, and, started playing on some of those all-star teams. Yeah. That's when we just first started doing anything in the fall. I think I might have been 13, 14 years old, but it was a really small schedule. And, you were playing with some of the best kids throughout the whole Salt Lake Valley for me.
Yeah.
And then, we had an all-star team out of that. I made that team, and then we would go play in a fall classic in Arizona, and playing against some of the likes of, I think Roy Halladay was down there. Like, it was a big thing. Yeah. I didn't realize it. I was naive. I was growing up in Utah, not a whole big hotbed for baseball. But, I just always had that aspiration to work. And, I probably just didn't even realize everything going on at the time. Just, I was good. I just aspired to go to college, no matter where it was. I just wanted to play baseball, get an education, and, continue to pursue that goal and dream. And, things manifested out of it. I can't complain one bit.
No. At that point, were you pitching only, or were you still playing in the field at that point?
No, I played both, in fact, even into college, junior college. I went to junior college right out of high school because, I had a chance to go to some smaller schools, and, junior college fit. I thought I could do more, still be available for the draft, but I was a two-way player. I actually ended up being a junior college All-American as a hitter. So it was crazy. And I was a switch hitter in college. And then I just went to right because I wanted to hit for more power. And, and when I went to Cal State Fullerton, I transferred there after my sophomore year. I was a two-way player at first. I'm like, this is too much. And on top of, I knew that if I was going to have any chance to make it, it was going to be on the mound. So, I just said after the fall, I'm like, I just want to pitch. And they're like, okay, no problem.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because so many times I hear pitchers say, they just didn't want to let it go. They wanted to swing the bat, and obviously you get to swing the bat not anymore, but you used to get to swing the bat as a pitcher from time to time. But was it an easy decision for you because you just thought to yourself, this is the path for me?
Yeah. I thought about it, but looking back, I made a pretty dang mature decision at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 20 years old. I'm just I just knew what I had to do, whether some divine intervention just kind of told me, look, you need to do this. However it came about, I did it. I talked to them. They agreed, and they said, all right, here we go. And then the rest is history. And then I just kind of really progressed through. I mean, I still enjoyed hitting. Don't get me wrong. Every pitcher enjoys to hit for the most part. No. Especially if you were a former position player. So I pitched and I played first base in junior college. So, but from then on, I still would handle the bat and do those things. And I just remember once getting to the big leagues, myself and Randy Wolf always had to have the spikes on just in case they needed a pinch hitter or somebody needed to bunt, anything like that.
Yeah, because you guys were athletes. Just out of curiosity, when does the hitting start to go away? You're an accomplished hitter for your entire life, but then you start to worry about pitching and pitching only. How long does it take for that to kind of, when you get into the box, be like, oh God, I kind of forget how to do this?
It's like riding a bike, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You get back in the box, you know what you're doing, but I think your mind thinks you're better than you are because you're like, that's like us. When we get older, you're like, oh, I can do that.
Sure.
Like, man, what was I thinking?
I can totally jump that fence. No, you cannot.
I totally think that our minds say that we can always do something. That's the competitiveness with us.
Yeah.
And so I think that you always think that you can do it. But I think that's what's kind of made us succeed in the realm of baseball is you never doubt yourself.
Yeah. I'm looking at your career hitting statistics right now, and lifetime 221 hitter in the big leagues. That is something to tip your cap to right there. You had 113 at bats and 25 hits. You'll take that.
I'll take that. Well, my big thing was whenever I was hitting, I knew how mad I got when a pitcher would sit there and foul pitches off and do stuff. I was just trying to lengthen out pitches.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I would try to lengthen it out. I was going to try to work a count because I knew if I built, I could get him frustrated because I would get frustrated with certain times when I couldn't get a pitcher out. They're like, really? And funny story I'll lead into with that. But, it's one of those things that, you're doing everything you can. It's the team aspect. And I knew I wasn't counted on to hit, but if I could make him throw 5-6 pitches per at bat for me, maybe that cuts down a full inning. Maybe he gets mad. Next thing you know, it leads to him making mistakes to the other part of the lineup. A funny story is I remember pitching against Schilling in Arizona, and I was having a battle with him, and he's throwing fastball. You can't catch up to his fastball. It was one of those special riding fastballs that now we can kind of equate today, hopefully, but nobody could hit it. And then I would foul it off, and then all of a sudden he threw me a split, and boom, hit a line drive up the middle, base hit. I see him the next day, and I won't say all the words he said, but in other words, he's like, "You're not that good." I said, "Well, Shill, you're the dummy that threw me something I could actually catch up to." He's like, "Third point, but you're still not that good." I said, "I got a hit off you, didn't I?"
That's all that matters.
Exactly.
It's funny. I think that's part of the reason that you really connected in Philadelphia as quickly as you did, because you were a gamer. That's what I remember watching you play is that, every time you went out there, whether or not you had your best stuff, whether or not, you just battled all the time. And in Philadelphia, that works. That's what they want. They want a guy that looks like and is going out there and giving everything he's got, no matter what. And I do think that was your game in a lot of ways. So that's part of the reason that you did connect. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Because I think growing up, I always had to overcome adversity. You know, I wasn't supposed to do this. I wasn't supposed to do that.
Right.
And you take that to heart and you say, okay, I'm going to prove to you. I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove, you know, always, oh, well, you're good, but you're not as good as Johnny, Tommy, Timmy, Joey, whatever. And you're just like, oh, okay. And then, you know, at the end of the day, I could sit back and say, no, I wasn't as good. I was better. And just because my own determination, the heart and everything that I put into it. And, you know, you have to do that. You got to grind because these are the best players in the world. And you're classified as one of them. I mean, that's a lot in itself, but to stay. And, you know, I think that's the toughest aspect that people don't realize is there's only 750.
Yeah. It is something that I think about all the time in terms of just, you know, how difficult it is for you guys to get there. And then as so many of you say all the time, and then to stay there, it's a difficult thing. I wonder, as you travel the country now and you're scouting young players, how much of that attitude, that makeup do you take to your reports and say, look, this guy might not be the most talented, but my God, you know, he's never going to give it bat away. He's never going to, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh, that goes into it. That's paramount. I mean, you got to have a balance. I mean, you can have superstar after superstar, but as you see in, like, say, the NBA and some of those, sometimes that's not the best team to have.
Right.
You know, you got role players, you got superstars, you have everyday guys, but, you know, I think one thing is for sure, coaches, front offices, fans, they love the guy that is a hard-nosed player like a Chase Utley that may not have the talent that a Chase Utley had, you know, and just pounds it and just like he's going everything he can. He may not be the most talented, but he outplays his tools. And you're always looking for those guys. And, you know, you try to put them in a bucket and, you know, on the scouting world and just say, I like this guy because X, Y, and Z. This is how he fits our club. Does he make us better? Where does he fit? You know, it's kind of a puzzle for us. And, you know, it's not easy by any means because you may see a guy terrible and you're like, what is going on? Why? Everybody talks so highly and you're seeing, and then you're diving deeper. And sometimes I dive too deep and I'm over analytical and, you know, but they know I'm going to do the work at the end of the day. And I take pride in that and, you know, saying, hey, whether he's right or wrong, you know, the work was put in.
Still a gamer. That's it. No matter what you're doing. I like that.
Yes.
All right, let's go back because in doing my research and looking, back at your early part of your career, I found this interesting because you don't often see this, and I'd kind of like you to explain it. So you were drafted by the Blue Jays in 1995 in the 30th round, and you didn't sign, correct? And then drafted by Arizona in 96, but in the 61st round at that point. Yes. Most of the time you see it the other way where a guy waits and then he jumps up a little bit. What were you thinking after being drafted by Arizona? Are you thinking maybe I should have made an earlier decision kind of thing?
Well, I almost did sign with Toronto, just the money, just to bypass school. I was trying to get to a certain amount because back then you knew if you got to a certain amount, they were going to keep you around. I was a 19-year-old kid right out of my, freshman year, had a great year and everything worked out. I'm like, I was close. It was really close. And then at the end of the day, they just didn't want to budge any further. And I'm like, look, I can go back to school. Not a big deal. The next year I didn't have as good of a year. So that, I think they were like, well, maybe last year just wasn't it. I don't know what my velocities and stuff were, but then, I always went and played in the summer. I went and played in them, after my freshman year, I went to Kansas and everybody's like, whoa, that was back when they were draft and follows. They don't have that anymore. But I think they might be coming back. So, really? So if you're a junior college kid or a high school kid that goes to a junior college, they could draft you, see how it goes, and try to sign you before the next draft.
Interesting. Okay.
But I didn't have a good year, so they bypassed. I was taken by Arizona. Nothing really came out of it. I went and played in Alaska that summer because I committed to Cal State Fullerton, and that could have been why, because they're thinking, he's going to go to Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah.
Transferred to Cal State Fullerton, had a good year. I was closing on Fridays, starting on Sundays. And then I got calls to be drafted, and, but it was like seniors type money, because from what I understand, I was told that I wasn't going to sign unless I got some stupid amount of money. And I'm like, ask me,
try me. All right.
Right. So we do that. And then I go undrafted. I'm just like, then don't draft me. I'm not going to sign for $1,000. I could do that next year. I'll have a year closer, if not finishing my bachelor's degree. So I'm like, it's not life-changing money. What's $1,000 in the end of the day?
Right.
And if I'm good enough, I'll go. If not, I continue on my school and move on to the next chapter. But then my junior year, I went up and played in the Cape, and everything just culminated and just came together. And a scout by the name of Dick Lawler, who just recently passed, one of the all-time great scouts for the Phillies.
Absolutely.
A number of guys is like myself, is, a non-drafted free agent myself, Batalico, I think Mike Lavalier, those are the three that I know off the top of my head as undrafted guys. So he signed me. I went in and just had to prove myself every step of the way. And, fortunately enough, they gave me every opportunity, and I was able to pass every test.
I wonder, had you had an easier path, if your path would have been different, because, it sounds to me as though every challenge that someone presented to you of being an undrafted free agent is a challenge to get to the big leagues. But it almost is like that's the challenge you needed to motivate you and to keep pushing you. And, if you had the easier path, perhaps maybe it would have been a little different.
Yeah. I think that comes without saying. I think just ever since I was a certain age, I think as soon as I hit the teen years, when I was being compared with everybody around, people because I grew up in an area that wasn't great as far as the schooling. We were in an area that was, not as wealthy as a lot of the areas that those kids were getting every opportunity, and, pay to play in a lot of respects. And I think that actually was the determining factor on how I was able to progress through and just achieve and just kind of put my nose to the grindstone and say, here it is, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to prove you all wrong. And it may take a while, but the cream's going to rise to the top. And that's what I tried to take myself and do. And I pride myself on that.
Tell me a little bit about the Cape Cod League, because, for most of us, all we have is the vision of Freddie Prince playing there. And I'm sure you hear that all the time, but it's true. I mean, the Cape Cod League, I had a buddy who coached in the Cape Cod League, and he would tell me stories about it. It's kind of in a lot of ways, I mean, baseball's very close to my heart, obviously to yours. So kind of a magical place, that Cape Cod League, the Wooden Bat League, the summer, the weather up there, and I wonder your experience in the Cape Cod League. Was it truly just a special time? Was it a grind for you? How was it?
No, it was a special time. Every collegiate player wants to play in the Cape. End of story. I mean, I played in the Jayhawk League. I played in Alaska, which I wanted to play in every single league, and I was able to play in the top 3 leagues at that time. But going up to Brewster for the Cape from Cal State Fullerton, originally they wanted me to go to Alaska, and I'm like, no, I'm going to the Cape. So, needless to say, I got on the Cape, went to Brewster, played with a lot of guys that end up played with and against a lot of guys that end up making there. But, they're always the top players in the country. I always wanted to push myself. And, I was able to go there, and right there, I think everything kind of really started to click, because they wanted me to only pitch out of the bullpen. And I'm like, wait a minute, I was a starter. Like, why? And I don't know if it was to try to hide you because all the starters were there and then scouts would leave. I don't know. And then all of a sudden I started, and I'm like, I want to start. And I think in fact, the game that Dick Lawler saw me, I think I punched out 9 straight guys.
That's straight. All right.
But, velocity was there. I had some time off, and then everything started to click up. But, it was a great experience. Obviously, the weather, it's just without saying, it's fun. And you're going to all these smaller towns, and you're playing against the best players, not only college players, but all the best college players are all there. Some younger, some my same age, but, it's one of those stories that you just you pinch yourself. I mean, just to get to that league, let alone advance, right? But, just the atmosphere at a lot of the games. And then, I had to work at a small store.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
It was called Stamaki. It just keeps going through my mind. I'm sitting there packing the freezers, but that was just to make some extra money. And it was great. I enjoyed it. I'm always the one that's up for the challenge and experience new things. I try to put myself in uncomfortable situations to see how I can get through it, because then I think that only makes you grow, not only as a person, but also as an athlete when you're in those situations as well.
Yeah. All right, young people, mark that one down, because that's an important piece of advice right there from Brandon Duckworth. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's a really good way of putting it. Mickey Morandini, side note, Mickey Morandini told me when he was playing at the Cape that he was a house painter, and that he would just be out there shirt off and painting the house. I think he thinks he's Freddie Prinze. I'm not sure. I'm not
I think he probably does.
Absolutely. I would have taken the store stocking job. I think that would have been a little bit better. All right. So then you join the Phillies, free agent, undrafted free agent, and you start working your way through the minor leagues. And you weren't down there very long before you got your chance, And again, did you get the sense as you worked your way through the minors that it was going to happen for you? Or was it always just like, all right, I just got to keep on going. I got to keep on going, and we'll see.
Well, since I didn't get a lot of money to sign and I wasn't the drafted guy, once again, you had to prove yourself at every single level. Yeah. So you go into instructional league. I was limited on the amount of innings that I threw, because I threw all summer plus my college. So in fact, Jimmy Rollins and I were roommates my first instructional league, right? So come back spring training the next year, I break with it was the Piedmont Boll Weevils at the time in the South Atlantic League.
Yeah.
And, I was pitching great there. And, I can't remember if it was July. I ended up going to Clearwater, pitched my way there. One crazy fact is my very first year, I threw 200 innings in the minor leagues.
Wow.
And they didn't even realize it. So that just told me that, I wasn't up there on the pecking order, but, I took pride in trying to go out there and go 6-7 innings and, pitch my heart out. And, that was the first year. And I don't think many guys have ever thrown 200 innings since on the minor leagues. I definitely not.
I wouldn't think so. Happen. Yeah.
But that was a goal of mine. I knew it was within reach, and I got it on my very last start in Clearwater. And who was it? I think it was Bill Dancy or Darrell Knowles. I'm like, oh, that just got me over 200 innings. They're like, what?
So
I'm just like, well, that just tells me pecking order way down at the bottom. But so pitched there, had a great year. I think I led in pretty much every statistical category. And then the next year, they kept a huge group of us together, and that was the group that kind of started the whole thing off for the run of Philly, right?
Yeah.
So, Jimmy was a notch just ahead of us. Burrell signed that year when we were in the Florida State League, and of course they were going to push him. But, myself, Eric Valent, Johnny Estrada, Nick Punto, Jason Michaels, we had a big group. And then we played in the Florida State League, and we had a guy by the name of Ryan Brandon. I don't know if you remember him. He was a top prospect.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he took steps back because they tried to change his delivery, and they would never do that today, I don't think.
Yeah. He was a closer, right?
Yeah. Really funky arm slot, heavy fastball, mid to upper 90s, just nasty. Nobody wanted to face him. He broke more bats than I'd ever seen, even when his velocity dropped into the mid 80s, mid to upper 80s. But so we were together, but he came down, so I had to piggyback him. They wanted him to start, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm all-star here. Like, once again, I was on the back burner, and then, I got into a little rut myself to where, I don't know if it was my own doing, just I couldn't get anything going, and I took it upon myself to talk to Daryl Knowles, like, hey, what's going on? I'm worried here. This is what's happened. This has happened. And then eventually I finally got back going in a good routine, and I finished strong. And Ruben Amaro Sr. asked if I wanted to go play winter ball down in Venezuela. I'm like, yeah, I'll make more money down there than I ever did in my minor league career. Yeah. So I went down there, and honestly, that was probably the biggest and best growth experience, not only as a player, but as a person. Sure. I was down there for 4 months. Myself, Jimmy Rollins, former prospect for us, Reggie Taylor, was there the whole time as well. But I'm playing against major leaguers, Maglio Ordonez, Richard Hidalgo, all these types of guys. And you're just like, holy cow. And I pitched great down there. I didn't get sent home. That was a positive, right? But you're playing against them, but also you're seeing and putting yourself in a situation where you're in a third world country, seeing how hard it is for these people that don't have the opportunities that we have. And you're seeing children on the corners panhandling for money or selling paper, selling fruit. And you're just like, wow, I really have it good. And it was a dangerous area, and not as dangerous as it is today, but still, I mean, you had to really be careful. You had to have, street smarts a bit, if you will. But the growth experience for me there was paramount. And if I ran anything, I would make it a point that every single prospect that I thought truly had a chance to make it would go put themselves in those uncomfortable situations and learn what it's like, especially for those guys coming here, the young Latin players coming here and trying to get by without having a car, not understanding the language, just playing the game. I think it was tremendous for me. I tell Ruben Amaro Jr. the same thing. I tell everybody, that was the biggest growth experience for me in multiple areas, not only, as a person, but also as an athlete.
Yeah. And I think we forget sometimes that the young players that come from the Latin American countries is here to the States to play. They're experiencing not the safety issue as much, but they're experiencing a similar situation as they try and get ready to play big league ball or in the big leagues and still trying to deal with learning the culture and learning the language. It's a difficult thing. And I think organizations do a better job with it now, probably. I think we're more aware of it now. But, sometimes you wonder why a guy's struggling. And it could be as simple as, he can't find the supermarket. He doesn't have a car, that kind of thing. And it's like, it's little things like that.
Yeah, you get a little homesick, whatever it may
absolutely.
Be. I mean, you just never know, but you learn to persevere. And like I say, you gotta battle through stuff because life's not easy. And I've just always been that way. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, well, I think probably for sure. All right. So what do you remember about August 7th, 2001? You're on the mound for the first time in the big leagues. And, I'm looking at your numbers. Pretty darn good. It was a good day for Brandon Duckworth. It was a good day for the Phillies offense too, but it was a good day for Brandon Duckworth.
Yeah, the one thing I will always remember is going out there on the mound. Dennis Cook, he was traded over from the Mets with Turk, came up to me and said, "I want you to do yourself a favor," with his little drawl that he had, and he's like, "I want you, when you get on that mound, I want you to take a deep breath, step off, look at the stands, because that's the one and only time that you're ever going to have that experience."
Yeah.
You making your major league debut, they call out your name, your parents are in the stands, fans are flocking in to see the new young prospects. And that's the one thing that you'll never forget. And I believe I faced Damian Jackson was the first hitter, and he grounded out to Jimmy Rollins. Got my first hit off of Bobby Jones, and I still remember Richie Hebner. I got the hit. He's like, "Take your helmet off, son. They're cheering for you." So I'm trying to timidly, and everybody gives me a hard time. I'm like, "I don't know. Hack told me to do it. I just follow it,
Hey,
but it was a tremendous feeling to know that I was able to get there with all my hard work, but not only my hard work, but the belief in my mom and dad, because they were able to be there, and something that goal and aspiration that you always set for yourself actually became a reality.
Yeah. And 21 years later, you can still hear the emotion in your voice because it is that special. And it is that, and it is that special because not many men get to that point in their lives. And you were surrounded by some pretty special talent in that clubhouse. A lot of those guys were emerging at that point. You mentioned Jimmy a couple of times. Bobby Abreu's on that team. Scott Rowland's on that team as well. Pat Burrell's on that team. You guys had some serious talent. And to your point, it was the beginning of the change in Philadelphia. And you were a part of that. That had to be pretty special.
Yeah, it was. I mean, had I wished I could have been there for the long haul?
Sure.
Absolutely. But, you come to the realization that, players are chips to push an organization ahead, and you're a prospect or you're a young major leaguer. And if they need, hey, we're going to have to give this guy up in order to really get this, then they do it. Jim Thome came in right towards the end of my career or my time there in Philly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they start making trades, and, myself going to Houston for Billy Wagner with a couple other prospects, Taylor Buchholz, and I think Ezekiel Estacio. But, so you go there, you pinch yourself, but then you're kind of like, man, there was something special there,
Yeah.
And I'd met my wife in Philly, and, of course she's flipping out, But, we weren't married at the time. It was my girlfriend, and, but everything became serious. And, but at the end of the day, if you look back, myself and a bunch of the other guys that ended up getting traded, Carlos Silva, Nick Punto, big groups of guys where Utley and them came in, they knew Utley was going to be a cornerstone. Sure. They knew that Jimmy Rollins was a cornerstone. Unfortunately, they had to trade Scott Rowland, but, they got some good players there. And, it was just a culmination of everything. And, Philly always has a fondness in my heart. The crazy part is my mom and dad, actually, my family started in Philadelphia. My brothers were born at the old Naval Hospital there.
Well, there you go.
It came full circle. Is really
how about that?
How it all came,
Yeah.
It was fortunate because, I ended up winning the Paul Omens Award twice, back-to-back years, myself and Marlon Byrd. And they flew my parents out, and, I knew they lived out there, but I didn't realize that they went to their old place where they lived, the old Pashaw Village, when it was like all abandoned before they tore it all out. And now you have all the new stuff there. But, it was pretty cool to see them, but just to see it come full circle.
Yeah.
It was really amazing.
I didn't know that about you. That's very interesting. That's very cool. You mentioned, obviously, so I mentioned a bunch of names. So Bobby Abreu wasn't there when it all culminated. Neither was Jim Thome when it all culminated. And I've talked to both of those guys about that. But I think there's a certain level of pride, there should be, that you guys were all part of the building blocks that did make it, culminate in 07, 08, 09, and the terrific run they had. But as you said, not everybody can get there. But for you, on to Kansas City, on to Houston, on to Kansas City, finishing out your major league career, and then in the middle of it, over to Japan, right? Where you did win a championship. And yes. I got to believe that was pretty special as well, right?
Oh, it really was. When I was, kind of up and down right there in the big leagues, I had always wanted to go over to Japan. If I didn't make it here, I wanted to go play there. So, that was a long time in the making, but, it was at the end of my career. But to go over there and experience their baseball and just how it is, it's completely like, it's a 180. It's like nothing changes. They bunt, they do all those little things. It's all contact, but it was a great experience. And, we won a championship over there. I was fortunate to play with Masahiro Tanaka, who he was 24-0. I'd never seen a pitching performance dominance like that. And I never will, probably ever. Not many people will, but just to see the passion that they have for the game itself. And once again, put yourself into a position where it's hard and just always trying to test yourself. But, it was a great experience. I love my family, loved going over there. Great people, just very safe. And I speak nothing but positivity about how it was over there. And, I still go back there today on the scouting side of things now.
Right.
So, which is great. And, I get my dose of Japan and all the great sushi and, Kobe steak.
If you need someone to carry your bags, let me know.
Yeah, right?
I'm all for it. Well, we're running out of time. So, but before I let you go, I did want to ask you about the scouting life now, because so after your career is over, you almost immediately joined up with the Yankees organization. And, scouting has changed over the years, but just in talking with you on the side, the way you go about your job, it's very, very much old school with the new analytics and the technology morphed in, but really it's your eyeballs that are leading you towards what you're doing each and every day, right?
Yes. I think you have to embrace new technology. I think it's tremendous. A lot of this stuff is tremendous. There's certain things that still have a ways to go, but I think to truly get the most out of yourself is, yes, you have your eye, you have your gut feelings, and then on top of that, you got to understand the analytical aspects, kind of what they're looking for and how all of that works. And you have to mesh it. And some people can do it better than others, whether I'm one of those people that's on the higher end or mid ground. I like to think I'm more on the higher end because, there's times where I'll fight and say, no, this isn't who I think this guy is. But that's the conviction you have to have. Yeah. And I think they come to trust that. Well, why do you think that? Well, because I played with so-and-so, and this is what reminds me of it. And, I have to stick to my guns. Yeah, I see this, but I just don't think this paints the whole story. You can plug in all the numbers on, say, a catcher, and he comes out to this high-end everyday player, and you're like, this guy is not it. And then you explain it in detail within your summary of the player and say, I don't think he's what this
interesting
thing is. So I think he fits more in this realm for X, Y, and Z reasons. And, and they honestly, they like to hear why you think that. Sure. There's a lot that you can't put numbers on clubhouse presence. And there's certain things that it's unmeasurable. Whether is this guy a good guy in the clubhouse? What does he bring to the table outside of the physical tools and game tools? They talk about, say, how, like, was it Jason Hayward in the World Series, how he was able to just a conversation with the guy or talk and
right.
Whatnot, and you see a lot of that, and you see leadership qualities that may not show up in the box score, but hey, this is how this guy was. You wished every guy had, the guts, guile, and whatnot on top of the talent, say, as a Chase Utley did.
Right?
Yeah, that's easy to see.
That's what made him special, right? Because they're few and far between.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he went so hard, and he was such a good athlete that he broke down. But he had that it factor. You try to find guys with the it factor, and maybe they're not the most talented guy, but maybe they're a utility guy, and you explain how they make your team better. And then when it all comes together, and say you do get that player, and you're like, holy cow, like, we never would have seen that. And I think that's where we come in, and using all of our experiences in and out of the clubhouse, having our connections to asking what type of a guy this guy is. Could he fit? I think the toughest thing for us or me is, can this guy play in New York?
Yeah. I guess that's a question you have to ask about every single guy.
Every one of them. You're like, man, you've seen some guys like now. If you look at it for us, we acquired Joey Gallo. He just never got comfortable. He's got talent, but and you could say that about a number of guys. A guy that I pitched against all the time, Javi Vasquez. He did not pitch well in New York. AJ Burnett had 1 year, but outside of that, you're thinking, man, these guys should thrive, but you truly don't know.
Yeah.
And no matter how much you dig into their backgrounds and their experiences, you really don't know until they get there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, I think the same questions probably are asked by the Philadelphia Scouts in Boston and Chicago. Guys, you do have to take that into consideration because it's a different kind of place. All right, final question, Brandon, before I let you go. I'm just curious, because you're around the game at every level. Is baseball in a good spot right now, do you think? Where would you say they are?
Well, I think we can be in a better spot. I think with kind of the way young players are being used, that's where I have the biggest issue. You have the travel ball, which is great. My son's in it, but I'm not a big advocate of every weekend they're playing 3 to 5 games. There's only 10 to 11 kids. How many innings are they pitching? And everything is, the stress level at 10 years old is
too high.
Oh, wait a minute. This isn't what it should be. We want them to win, but I want them to learn the game, learn why they play a certain position, how each position works. I think in a lot of respects, the teaching isn't there, whether it's good or bad teaching. We all came up with people and coaches that, hey, they didn't know.
They don't have to be major leaguers.
Some of the best coaches and teachers were never major leaguers. Right. Well, some of the best that played the game, they just did it. They can't teach.
They can't teach.
Right. But I think there's too much is about, I have to play on this team and this team and this team and this team. And they're overplaying. They're playing, 60 to 80 games is these young kids. And I think my worry is the amount of injuries, and everything's based only around power, how hard you throw and how far you hit it or how hard you hit it, and we're losing some of the nuances of the game of guys that know how to play.
Yeah.
You can't make everybody a clone.
Right. Because, as we talked about, you need different kinds of personalities. You need different kinds of players in that clubhouse to make it work. I think, when you're talking about the youth the youth in the sport from age 10, 11 through 15, 16, maybe the most important thing is to teach these guys to love the game. Because if you love the game, which obviously you did and do, you're much more likely to give everything you've got because you want it to be a part of your life. So
I definitely the love of the game has to be there.
It really does.
But I think what's really missing early age, and even now watching it in the major leagues, fundamentals.
Oh yeah.
Guys are not fundamentally sound. They're rushed through. And I think that really hurts. It really hurts. They want to hurry up and get guys to the big leagues at a young age to maximize their early years, because at a certain age, at 32, 31, most likely they start to on the downslide. We got to get them there by 22, 23. I think we're doing not only the player, but potentially the game a little bit of a disservice. Instead of, no, we're going to learn, we're going to do this, we're not going to push it. I think in certain respects, I think fundamentals need to really improve to improve the game.
I would agree 100%. And hopefully, I think enough people with say have started to realize that. So hopefully we get a little bit back towards those kinds of days, those kinds of teachings in the minor leagues, so that when the guys do arrive in the big leagues, they already have that. Brandon, I knew this would be a lot of fun. Always enjoy talking with you. And I really appreciate your time, taking some time out this morning to sit with us and tell us some of your glove stories. And I'll always have the image of you stocking the shelves in the Cape Cod League now. It's stuck in my head. You and Mickey now. You and Mickey. So,
well, as long as Jessica Bill's running around, I think every kid would be really happy to do that. I'm sure my wife would love to hear that. She's like, I said, it's nothing different than you watching Brad Pitt on Legends of the Fall. That's right.
Exactly right. We should all live in a movie. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, yeah.
Brandon Duckworth, great to see you. I'm sure I'll see you real soon, and continued success with the scouting and the New York Yankees.
All right. Thanks, Murph.
All right. Brandon Duckworth joining us here. We'll take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more here on Glove Stories with Murph.
The all-new Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app is here for both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Get in on all the action, whether it's baseball, the basketball and hockey playoffs, golf, all your favorite sports. Download the all-new Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app and make your first bet risk-free up to $750. Bet more than the score. Bet on individual player performances for hits, home runs, and strikeouts. Bet innings, first team to score, and more. Bet Parks is the only sportsbook and casino app that I recommend. The Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app, where odds, bets, slots, and games all come together in perfect harmony right in your pocket. Sportsbook and all your favorite casino games for real money, all in one amazing app. Live in-game betting lets you bet while you watch the game. Download right now in the App Store, Google Play Store, or at betparks.com and use my promo code Murph. Bet Parks is also an official proud betting operator of the PGA Tour. The all-new Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app. You must be 21 and in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome to This Week in Philly Baseball History, presented by Shibe Vintage Sports. This week in 2009, Matt Stairs' grand slam in the ninth inning of a game against Washington tied a 50-year club record for the most pinch hits in a season. Stairs is baseball's all-time leader in pinch hit home runs with 23. Celebrate more Philly sports history with clothing from Shibe Vintage Sports, where there's a story in every stitch. Visit them at 13th and Walnut Streets or at shibesports.com.
Phillies Nation is your source for breaking news, original analysis, trade insights, and more. Read today's articles at philliesnation.com.
And welcome back, everybody, to Glove Stories with Murph, brought to you by the Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app, the Shibe Vintage Sports, and the great folks at Phillies Nation as well. And from Phillies Nation, we welcome in Tim Kelly, the editorial director for Phillies Nation. Tim, thanks for being with us, as you are each and every month. And, well, it's been a pretty good run since the last time you and I have talked about this particular Phillies team. You're in and around the ballpark every day. What has been your sense of these guys as they make this final push towards the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to have to exercise some demons in September, but I do think you went into the last few Septembers kind of waiting for it to happen, feeling like it was a matter of when does the collapse kind of take place. And I don't enter September this year thinking that. That doesn't mean they're going to storm back and win the NL East, but I do anticipate they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there's a sense to that this year. Obviously, different personnel, a new manager, a little bit of a different feel in and around that clubhouse. Is there one or two things that you put your finger on that you can point to, whether it be an individual or just maybe a skill set that they have now that they didn't have in the past?
Well, I mean, I would point to some of the lows that they've had even since Rob Thompson's taken over. They came out of the All-Star break and got swept by a bad Cubs team and then ran off a bunch of wins. They had a series where they lost 3 or 4 to the Mets, and then they took care of the Reds and the Pirates right after that. So they've shown that when things get low for a few days, it doesn't start to snowball, which I think was the issue over the last few years, is you just couldn't stop the bleeding. They've been able to do that and then some this year.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. Again, with the new personnel that they brought in this year, a guy like Kyle Schwarber seems to be a guy that can walk around that clubhouse and instantly change the mood, instantly change the karma if things aren't going well. Those guys are important to have in the clubhouse, and they might not have had enough of that in the past. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think even though he's had somewhat of a disappointing first season, Nick Castellanos kind of falls into that category.
I agree.
They talked about trying to have guys with edge, and I think the 07 to 11 Phillies, you had like Aaron Rowan at the front half of that, but you had Jason Worth, you had Pat Burrell. It doesn't always necessarily have to be the guy that has the best numbers on the team, although Kyle Schwarber's having an excellent season, but a guy that has the respect of everybody in the locker room. And there are just some guys you can look at and say that guy is a winner everywhere he's gone. And I think Kyle Schwarber in a lot of senses fits that bill.
Yeah, I agree. And then Rob Thompson has pointed to a couple of times just the way this bullpen has pitched. And they went through a little bit of a short period where they weren't as sharp at the very end of August. However, for the most part, when you hand the baseball to the back end of this bullpen, you feel pretty good that they're going to be able to lock it down, where in years past, obviously, you're sitting on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's another one of the reasons I head into September with confidence is you've lost Sir Anthony Dominguez and you've kept going. You lost Zach Wheeler briefly, you kept going. You lost Bryce Harper and Gene Segura for extended periods, and you kept going. Like, I really do think if that happens over any of the last 3 seasons, that was probably the nail in the coffin for the team. But good teams just kind of keep going even when the talent isn't necessarily there, and the Phillies have done that. And I look around at the bullpen, and there's 3 or 4 guys that would have been the best reliever on the Phillies the last 2 or 3 years that you now have at the back end of that bullpen. So I think you're in good shape, and you'll be in great shape if you get Sir Anthony Dominguez back.
Yeah, and it does sound like he's trending in that direction. And, we're taping this at the very beginning of September. So hopefully if folks are listening a little bit later, he is back at that point. We talked to him yesterday, and he says he feels really good. So obviously a huge part of that bullpen. It kind of resets everybody in the back end. So getting him back would be terrific. The excitement around this team right now, the excitement in the city of Philadelphia is starting to build. And, it's a feeling that we remember, as early as, I guess, the last time was the early part was 2006, when you thought to yourself, okay, September's going to be fun here in Philadelphia. Certainly more fun if they continue to win more than they lose and keep pace in that wild card race. But it's a special time, is it not, Tim, in the city when the baseball team's playing well? The Eagles will be back, but people will be paying attention to baseball as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the case. There are some people, I think, kind of waiting to see the first week of September that there isn't kind of a collapse. But yeah, I mean, once you get through that, assuming that the Phillies do get through that, I think you really start to see some people buy in. It will help that hopefully it's not going to be 100 degrees every day anymore. I do think that that's a very real factor that's contributed to the fact that the Phillies maybe haven't had attendance where it was 10 or 15 years ago. So that's something to consider. But yeah, I mean, you get through some of these bad teams, you start to get to down the stretch. And I think Citizens Bank Park, I don't know if it'll be sold out every night, but I think you talk about 35,000 plus every night.
Yeah, you mentioned the division. The Mets and the Braves pretty much are battling out for that spot at this point. I think it's fair to say Phils don't win the NL East this year, barring something miraculous. But that's okay, because as we've seen over the last couple of years, get into the postseason tournament and anything can happen. And in fact, if you go back the last 3 of the last 4 years, you could say, it was a team that kind of came out of nowhere once they got in. So the idea that they come in, does it matter for you where they slot in the postseason in terms of first wild card, second wild card, third kind of thing?
Well, I mean, if you get the first wild card, that's great. I think you're probably looking more at the second or third wild card at this point. I don't think you're going to catch whichever team doesn't win the NL East. So, yeah, I mean, if they're right now, I think if they're the second wild card, they play the Braves, and if they're the third wild card, they play the Cardinals. And in theory, it's better to be second than third. But I do think a lot of people feel like the Phillies would have a better shot to beat the Cardinals. But I'm old enough to remember 2011 when people wanted the Phillies to play the Cardinals instead of the Braves. So I'd say just get in and let the rest take care of itself.
I'm old enough to remember aging in 2011, like physically feeling it when it happened, because that was a tough road. You know what? Yeah, it's like almost be careful what you wish for kind of thing, right? Because we wished for that back then and got exactly what we asked for. So I would agree. Now, look, so it leads me to my next question. Are you more impressed with this Phillies team and the way they've played again? Take the Mets out of the equation, but the way they played against really good teams this year, and they have played very well against good teams this year, or are you more impressed with the way they've been able to take care of business against bad teams this year?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I would say I'm more impressed by the fact that you've played really well against pretty much every team except the Mets. You've gone 500 or above against some of these really good teams, and that bodes well for the playoffs. But I mean, I do see some people saying, oh, the second Phillies lose like one game, well, they just beat up on a bunch of bad teams. The reason they didn't make the playoffs the last few years is because they didn't beat up on those bad teams. Maybe they took 2 out of 4 when you needed to take 3 out of 4. They've had some series against the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, the Rangers, where they should have done better. But by and large, they took 5 out of 6 from the Pirates. They played very well against the Reds. Like, they've done what they've needed to do. They've I don't want to jinx anything, but they've seemingly moved past the whole Marlins thing. So,
I'll knock on wood over here. Go ahead.
I think that there's something to be said. Like, one is more impressive, but the other is what gets you into the playoffs. I think being able to beat the bad teams.
I think fans forget that while the Phillies are beating up on the Reds and the Pirates, the Braves are beating up on, the bottom feeders in the West or in the American League. Everybody is beating up, if you're going to be a postseason team, on the bad teams. That's how it works. And so it's not just you play your schedule, and next year it'll be even more balanced, but it's a relatively balanced schedule. You can only do what you can do. So, all right, Tim. So put on your little hat and crystal ball and look forward for me. They've got a couple weeks still to play, but the schedule is favorable. So in your mind, is this a postseason team? Are the Phillies playing in October?
The Phillies are playing in October. It remains to be seen if they're playing in Philadelphia in October, because obviously the wild card series is going to be all on the road, whether it's St. Louis or Atlanta, which I think there's a percentage of fans that don't know that yet, and it'll be kind of a sad moment when they realize it. But if they can get through that, then you get back to the traditional NLDS and you would have some games here. So I do think they're in the playoffs. Whether that means playoff baseball comes back to Citizens Bank Park or not remains to be seen.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that, since it's all brand new. The wild card series will begin. It's 3 straight days, and it's in the higher seed city, and that's it. Or they don't travel, so it'll be 3 games in St. Louis, in Atlanta, or if the Phils are able to jump, in Philadelphia. But I don't know if I'm quasi optimistic, but that doesn't really scare me. I think the Phils have played really well on the road this year. They have the pitching, if it lines up, that they can win in any ballpark in America. So the idea, I mean, it would be great for the fans, but the idea that they might have to play, win 2 games out of 3 on the road, certainly think that's possible for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would probably feel better in St. Louis, because they've done that in St. Louis this year, but just the history of the Phillies since Truist Park is open is not particularly good down there. So it is a different team, but I do think that St. Louis you'd probably feel more comfortable going into. But, I mean, you look around the team, there is kind of a magic with the Cardinals this year with Albert Pujols' final season. Arenado and Goldschmidt are probably at the back half of their peaks. Yachty's final season. Wainwright's still good. So either way, you're going to have your work cut out.
Yeah, but folks in St. Louis are probably looking at this Phillies roster and saying a similar kind of thing. So, and in Atlanta, and the Phillies have played well against both those teams. All right, final question before I let you go, Tim. When you're connecting with your readers through Phillies Nation, do you get the sense that there's some excitement around this team, or is it more trepidation? You got to show me because it's been so long.
I think it's a little bit of both, but last year it was like, you're guilty until proven innocent. I don't think it's that case this year. I think people expect them to do well, but there is still that back half of your mind that you have to get over what's plagued you in September the last few years.
That's interesting. It's interesting. They've got some astute readers over there at Phillies Nation because I can sense that. I think that's probably the way it should be right now. You still got to prove it at some point. Tim Kelly, the editorial director for Phillies Nation, joining us here on Glove Stories with Murph. Tim, always appreciate your insights. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Murph.
All right, we'll take a quick break. More to come. Stay with us.
Welcome to This Week in Philly Baseball History, presented by Shibe Vintage Sports. This week in 2009, Matt Stairs' grand slam in the ninth inning of a game against Washington tied a 50-year club record for the most pinch hits in a season. Stairs is baseball's all-time leader in pinch hit home runs with 23. Celebrate more Philly sports history with clothing from Shibe Vintage Sports, where there's a story in every stitch. Visit them at 13th and Walnut Streets or at shibesports.com.
The all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app is here for both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Get in on all the action, whether it's baseball, the basketball and hockey playoffs, golf, all your favorite sports. Download the all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app and make your first bet risk-free up to $750. Bet more than the score. Bet on individual player performances for hits, home runs, and strikeouts. Bet innings, first team to score, and more. BetParx is the only sportsbook and casino app that I recommend. The BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app, where odds, bets, slots, and games all come together in perfect harmony right in your pocket. Sportsbook and all your favorite casino games for real money, all in one amazing app. Live in-game betting lets you bet while you watch the game. Download right now in the App Store, Google Play Store, or at betparx.com and use my promo code Murph. BetParx is also an official proud betting operator of the PGA Tour. The all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app. You must be 21 and in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Phillies Nation is your source for breaking news, original analysis, trade insights, and more. Read today's articles at philliesnation.com. Glove Stories with Murph is sponsored by the BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app, along with Shine Vintage Sports and Phillies Nation, and is a presentation of SBC Media Partners. The engineer for Glove Stories is Chad Evans. Cindy Webster is our marketing and guest relations director, and our executive producer is Roger Haddon. Whether you are watching us on YouTube or downloading the podcast from one of the major podcast providers like Apple, Google, or Spotify, make sure to hit like and subscribe so that we can let you know when a new episode of Glove Stories is available. We'll release new episodes weekly throughout the 2022 Major League Baseball season.